yes, people said we haven't heard anybody this negative in front of the United Nations maybe since Muammar Gaddafi or Hugo Chavez. And yesterday it was Donald Trump. Overall, Joe, what do you think of the speech?
An embarrassment to the nation, a rebuke to this international body. I think we haven't heard anything like this. You'd have to compare this to Khrushchev, the banging of the shoe, even broader to a Mussolini or a Franco. This kind of bullying, this, I think you called it a hate-filled speech. No policy, no positive suggestions, no plan of any kind, just an appeal to nationalism, sovereignty. He used the word sovereign or sovereignty 21 times. This was a pure American first speech.
Well, that if to the extent that there was any theme, it was that theme that you just touched on, which was kind of strange. Well, let's hear it from him. What he says, my goal is, and it should be your goal too. Here he is.
As President of the United States, I will always put America first. Just like you, as the leaders of your countries, will always and should always put your countries first.
So is that what the United Nations is all about?
Of course not, and that was his only applause line. This is at a body created by the United States.
Not a very enthusiastic.
No, not a very. That was
sort of a polite,
that was the best you got.
That was BB.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a handful of world leaders who liked this speech. The international reaction is rolling in. People are appalled by what they saw. This has alienated countries from the United States. This has weakened our ties with our allies. Even one of our closest allies in Asia, Japan, President Abe's office refused comment on the speech, and they want to like Donald Trump.
Yeah, of course.
Right. So no, this is an international body. This is where you pool your interests, where you don't put your own country's interest first for the sake of solving problems that we can only solve together. And this was a direct affront to the very core reason for the existence of the United Nations.
I mean, that's what was missing to me from the speech is, yes, of course, as Americans, we put our country first to a certain extent. But then the reason for the United Nations is there are many problems that we can only solve together.
Exactly.
So while we love our country, number one, we're here to work with you to make it a better planet.
And the United Nations was born in the wake of World War II, where we saw what happens when one nation thinks its interests are über alles, are overall, And that was, the United Nations was a direct refutation of that view. And here's President Trump resuscitating that very dangerous theory.
It's also a time where previous American presidents, Republican and Democrat, have always given an aspirational speech, right? They start to try, and they, and certainly they didn't indulge in personal insults, even against people that we may not agree with. With Donald Trump, though, it's back to the old campaign rhetoric. We had Little Marco, Lion Ted, Crooked Hillary, and now we have
Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and for his regime.
What does this get us?
Nothing at all. It just satisfies Donald Trump's inner drives. This is clearly he was using the United Nations as a prop. He didn't really care about the delegates. This was all about appealing to his base, just as he did in the very first week of his presidency when he uses the CIA to talk about himself. And in fact, I think I've seen the papers today trying to look at what this means, what strategy, try to piece. But I think we're making a mistake if we try to impose some kind of rationality, some kind of grand plan on Trump. I don't think there's a strategy here at all. I think what we're seeing is a bully taking a stage and acting as a bully and just extending it now to a global stage. We're watching not strategy, but the personal pathology of Donald Trump projected as policy.
And in terms of our dealing with North Korea, his very next statement, of course, is if you think Donald Trump, he seems to be thinking about one thing only, one way out of this contretemps that we now have with North Korea, and here he is, lays it out.
The United States has great strength and patience, but if it is forced to defend itself or its allies, we will have no choice but to totally destroy North Korea.
Again, an American president in front of the General Assembly going with a message of we're going to obliterate another country.
There were so many things wrong with that statement. I mean, number one, I think this is what I mean by the person of pathology. This is the bully, right? He talks nice, he talks in soft tones, but if you don't do what he says, he has no choice but to totally destroy you, right? And you see him doing this with his staff. You know, you see him, and now you see him picking on countries. And, of course, no president has ever said anything like this. Project strength, of course. Talk about the awesome power that we have, yes. But what remorsefully, like, we don't want to use this. Let's find a peaceful way. Nothing like that in Donald Trump's view of the world, his view of power, his view of force.